Today's recommended series is London Celebrities by Lucy Parker. So I wanted to do a series that was based on contemporary romance just because I know that most of the content on this channel so far has either concentrated on historical fiction or else on fantasy. And I wanted to do something that was a little bit more accessible for people who aren't interested in those genres, especially because, I know that a lot of the people that I know are really into contemporary. Now, the problem is that I wanted to recommend something that was a classic of the series, something that had a lot of readability and that I thought would endure the test of time, kind of like all my other recommendations. The problem with that is that when we come to contemporary, especially contemporary romance, the field is so vast that I didn't know where to start or how to recommend. Especially because a lot of the books that I really love and a lot of the authors that I love, when it comes to contemporary, they write standalones. But this is not a series about standalone books, so I was wondering, should I do one of my now patented mix and match episodes, or should I still try and find a series? I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and she said that maybe I should just go back to somebody who, is one of the legends of the genre. She was talking about Nora Roberts, who has written a number of series and is justifiably well known for her writing. And I have some issues with Nora Roberts. Don't get me wrong, I think she's a very fine writer, and I grew up reading her books, and I think she was one of my my earliest authors who got me into reading contemporary. But the problem with Nora is that, I don't know, at some point she just had such a lot of output that I think the quality of her books kind of suffered. I call it the production line syndrome, which happens to a lot of successful authors, especially genre novelists who write a lot of fiction and who usually have, multiple books coming out a year, for example. And it kind of, I don't blame them, because it's hard to come up with absolutely original content every single time, and sometimes you sort of rely on a series to sort of do a lot of the heavy lifting. So you're like, well, my readers already know that, or I've already explained this part in that other book and I just need to reference that. And I get it, it's good strategy, but the thing is, as a reader, sometimes you feel that you're being taken for granted, even if that is not the intent. Which is why I kind of stopped reading Nora Roberts about it must have been like about 10 years ago, and I didn't want to recommend something that I didn't personally enjoy. So if you've never read Nora Roberts and you're wondering, well, should I? I'm going to say yes, you should, because I remember her early work being very good, and you should absolutely go back and check out her books from that first like 90s to, I would say, up to like mid 2000s. You're probably good. And maybe she's fixed all her problems, and like I said, I haven't read her in a long time, so if you're a dedicated Nora Roberts fan and you disagree, then let me know. I'd be very happy to go back to read somebody whom I used to love a great deal. Another issue was the word classic, which was what I kind of used when I was discussing with my friends, like, what do I recommend to people? And I said, well, I want something that's a classic of the genre, because I feel like some of the books that I've recommended so far, they are classics of the genre, whether it's saga or Wheel of Time. And I wanted something similar for contemporary romance. And that sort of went back to, some very old debates that I've been having and my friends have been having about what is a classic, who gets to decide what's a classic, how subjective is it? It's a term that requires a lot of interrogation, and I didn't really feel like I wanted to get into that in this particular video. So I was like, well, what do I do then? So in the end, I just decided to do what I like to do best and just wing it and tell you something that I really enjoy. But this again presented problems because my first selection was actually Suzanne Brockman's Navy SEAL series, which I'm going to leave a link down below. And I'm still going to recommend because I think it's a very interesting series in that it tackles a lot of difficult subjects. It's not your run-of-the-mill man in a uniform series. It tackles interracial relationships. It talks about LGBTQ relationships. It talks about the discrimination that a lot of people face when they're in an interracial relationship or if they're in an LGBTQ relationship. And I think her LGBTQ stuff especially is very dear to her heart because her son is gay. As far back as I can remember, she's been very open about it and about being the mom of a gay son and how she wants to support him. And I have to say, her books about Robin and Jules are really fun and I really enjoy them. But the world being what it is right now, I just didn't feel right recommending a series that's full of like military personnel and FBI agents. I know not all men in uniform, but I didn't want to recommend it. However, if you are interested in the genre and you love a good man in uniform romance, then I'm going to recommend that you try Suzanne Brockman. And I've gone back and reread several of her novels over the years, and they're sexy, they're funny, and they're just good thriller reads as well. Which brings us finally to my recommended series, which is the London Celebrities series by Lucy Parker. At last. You know, I wasn't aware of just how much British fiction I read until I started recording these videos. I mean, I knew I'd read a lot, but I didn't know how much. I think that makes sense because I'm Indian and you kind of grow up reading a lot of British fiction, but I also read a lot of contemporary British stuff. Which is not bad. Like, I don't feel conflicted about it. I'm just really surprised because I thought like I consumed a lot more American stuff than I did British, but I guess that's not true. So London Celebrities is basically, as the title suggests, about London celebrities. I generally think writing about celebrities or basing your books, your fiction books on celebrities is probably really good from a sales perspective because who doesn't love a good celebrity romance? People are still obsessing over Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie, and it's been what, like 15 years? Now, these are not celebrities on quite that level, so they're usually, television presenters or stage actors. But it's still about celebrities, and it's about, all the ways that your life kind of goes out of whack when you're in the public eye, and also about sexy romances. They're extremely witty and what I would term perfect beach reads or the perfect pick-me-up. And I personally go through them like a bag of Skittles. That kind of sounds like a diss, like I'm saying they're very disposable and they're not that great, but that's not true. Some of my all-time favorite books are basically what would be quantified as beach reads. And I don't think people understand just how difficult it is to pull off something like this. It needs to have great banter, and you need to have, a female lead that you can really identify with and a male lead that you want. But you don't want to sacrifice character complexity, and you don't want them to be like too boring. It needs to be just right. You need to be able to be invested in them emotionally. The characters have to go through some real stuff. But the writing needs to be breezy and fun and sexy, and it has to all come together. And I know more than one author, even like established authors, who've fallen flat on their faces trying to pull this off. Lucy Parker, however, is not one of those people because her series is actually good and it's fun, and I honestly feel like this is a series that I will be reading again and again in the future. I don't know how many agains, but I will be reading them again when I need a break and when I need something to pick me up. And I think you would enjoy them too. For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.